Hey guys, I want to take the time to show you guys how to low fire glaze your sculpted heads. So you guys have your sculpted heads that you made out of clay when you did your blind sculpture. They are ready, they've been fired. They are a bisque and they'll look something like this. You can see when I tap it, it now is a ceramic. But to seal the clay or the ceramic on that, we need to go in and coat it with a glaze and seal the pores of the ceramic. So we're gonna go through and glaze those with the colors that you choose. It'll come out looking something more like this. And you can see the glaze that coats the outside. It gives it that kind of shiny look. We'll coat it with that and then we'll go in and fire it again. So what we're going to do first is show you how to choose your color. You'll notice we have a row right here of glazes in the larger pint jars. We also have some smaller 4-ounce jars up on that top shelf up there. You can use any of these. They're all low fire glazes, which means they are fired at a lower temperature than the high fire glazes, but it's pretty close anyway. These will fire to about 1700 degrees, and then they'll cool. That glaze will turn into a glass, like a liquid glass, and then it cools off and turns into like glass. So now we would tell you to choose from these, but this is not what your colors will look like when they are finished. This is what they look like when they're painted on. So the best way to choose those is go to the chart. So we're going to take you to the chart here on the wall. So here you can see the wall of tiles. We've got some brighter colors and some darker colors. So I'm going to look at this wall right here, and if I look carefully, you can see I have a white right here on the wall. I want to paint my piece white, so I'm going to go, and that one's called downright white. If you look right here on the chart, I'm going to go into the jars over here and find the downright white. The downright white is this jar right here. It says downright white. If I look at the jar, you'll notice that this glaze is not white, it's a light blue. It will paint on a light blue, kind of looks like a mint color, but when fired in the kiln, it will turn white. You'll notice here on the chart again, I'm gonna actually paint the head today. I'm going to use the desert pine right here, which is kind of a dark green. If I walk over to the jars over here and find the, let's see, desert pine. The desert pine is sitting right here. You'll notice when I open that up, not a dark green, but a dark red. So you can see the colors don't always turn out right, or they don't always paint on the same color that you would see them on in the jar. They'll change color. So now what I would like to do is go ahead and show you how to paint these onto your pieces. Now, I have the ceramic here. I want to go through and glaze it. Now I'm going to glaze the entire thing. The only thing I'm not going to glaze is I'm going to make sure that whatever spot that is touching the table when it's at rest is not glazed, because when I fire it, I don't want it to melt and stick to the shelf. So I can go through and glaze this entire piece. For your choices, I don't care what color you glaze it. You can use whatever colors you'd like. I only want you to use at least 2 colors. You can go full on one color, or you can go in and paint it 2 different colors. But I don't want you to do more than that, or else it gets too gobby. And so we're going to go ahead and just start with the ceramic here. Now, when you get your jar, these settle. They have a sediment in them, so you want to make sure that you shake it up. Sometimes the lids don't get put on tight, and unless you want to be covered in glaze, you need to make sure that the lid is on tight. So what I do is I take and I check it and make sure the lid's on tight, but I also, when I shake it, I put my finger on top, and then I just shake it up side to side and make sure that that glaze is mixing around, okay? So now I have that glaze all mixed up. I'm ready to glaze it. I'm gonna open the jar. When I glaze, I'm gonna use a regular size brush. We have some smaller brushes as well. Those are over next to the sink. when you're finished, you want to make sure that you wash those out. So I've got a nice clean dry brush right here, and I'm going to go in and dip it into the glaze. Now I don't want you to put this all the way in, or else you get glaze all over the brush handle, and then you get glaze all over the place. You're wasting it. Your hands get all dirty. So when you glaze, just take it and dip in just the bristles, and then you can take the drips off on the edge of the bottle, and then you just kind of brush it on. Now, with painting these, the ceramic is going to kind of soak up the glaze, so you kind of want to put it on pretty thick. So I'm just kind of going over it and squishing my bristles into the actual piece. And then I just kind of go into anywhere there's a hole or a crevice, and I just kind of swirl it around in there. Now if it's smaller and you're using a smaller brush, it's the same, you just do it in smaller scale. So I just want to go through and make sure that I can't see any of that pink of the clay. Otherwise, when it's fired, that pink shows up, and the contrasting color is quite noticeable. And so I want to make sure that that doesn't show up, that just the nice glaze color shows up, because it doesn't look as good, it doesn't look finished. So then I just go back and check anywhere. See, I've got a little bit on the ear, a little bit in the eye. You can go over it with a second coat if you want it to be really dark in the color. So I'm just going to put a little bit more on the dry spots to give it a little bit thicker. And then once I'm done, set my brush right there. I'm going to take it over and put it on the shelf to get fired. If there's a little bit on the bottom, which you can see on this one there is, I'm just going to take a wet sponge, wash that part off so that it's not on the bottom, and then when it's fired it won't stick. And that is glazing your low fire pieces. Take and make sure that you wash out your brush, put your lid tight on your container, and you're ready to go. Make sure you put your jars back on the shelf where they go, and then wipe off your table and make sure it's nice and clean.